is the first time we've had the pleasure of meeting, thank you very much for joining this call today. I'm very excited to be able to share all of this information with you, this demo of our new product. I'm also here joined by our new Vice President of Growth and Business Development, Joel Renner. He will be here today in the background and he'll have a moment to introduce himself, but he is going to be monitoring the chat here to answer questions as well. So a brief agenda for our time today. If you're unfamiliar with this company, I'm going to give you a background of it in about 5 minutes. And then we're going to talk about the purpose and features of ConsumerPulse, the platform itself, walk through how it works, but the bulk of our time will be spent in the platform. I encourage you to have Q&A throughout the entire presentation today. No need to wait until the end. You can throw questions in the chat. I would much rather have any questions that you have be answered on the fly, and feel free to interrupt me in that way. Everyone will receive a copy of these slides and the trial platform, the link post-meeting. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Joel for a moment to introduce himself.
Hello, everyone. Glad to join today and to be joining this team. I've spent the last sort of 20, 25 years in some of the hospitality spaces, have worked at breweries, have had beer reviews online, and have really cared about this space, and have been lucky enough to be an advisor as Michael has had this journey. And when there was an opportunity to join the team, leapt at it, and really looking forward to meeting all of you today and sharing more of this information in the future as you all look to not only improve the product that you have, but also the experience that you are sharing with your folks.
All right, thank you so much. So brief history of the company for anyone who's unfamiliar. Craft Beer Advisory Services was launched in 2021 after I started my career in market research, primarily for major universities, helping them figure out which degrees would attract students, and major tech companies figure out how to better attract software engineers into their business. I began working one-off market research and consulting projects, basically in the consumer insight space, helping breweries understand their specific value proposition to customers and how that differentiates within their competitive market. A brief sample is linked there for you to check out afterwards. Through doing that work, developed an experience factor framework, understanding what are the 10 or so factors that motivate taproom visits. Continued upskilling in technology, and ultimately took the one-off market research and turned it into a tech platform, which you're going to see today throughout the majority of our call, understanding how to take that work of one-off, doing projects one at a time, to ultimately creating a platform that is always on, that you are then able to see your insights in real time. And that's what brings us today, ConsumerPulse, our new and industry's first real-time on-premise consumer insights platform. Purpose and features. One of the key elements of that all of you are facing is understanding the market with respect to who are your competitors. And we know that that's increased as time has continued. The industry is changing. And a lot of the times when somebody's thinking about where to go for a drink, it's often much beyond just a craft brewery. So what is one of the features here? Understanding your specific taproom data compared to your custom selection of local competitors, understanding the value proposition of your brewery compared to the local market, figuring out how do I stick out in a crowded marketplace. A second issue facing the industry, rapidly changing consumers. This platform truly provides real-time data in the truest sense of the word, where you are going to have a pulse on what is being said nationwide, regionally, locally, all specific to taproom visits. Higher consumer expectations, that's another key element here. All of the pieces of feedback that are in the platform are filterable by sentiment, gender, geography, and much more that you'll be able to see here in a moment. But the higher consumer expectations, you'll be able to see exactly what consumers are talking about in their experiences, what's good, what's bad, what's in between, and there are plenty of tools to understand how you can make something go from good to great to ultimately motivating that return taproom customer. Lastly, there's limitations in measuring the on-premise customer experience. You hear all the time, I'm sure, from bartenders turning anecdotes into how do we act on that. What this platform aims to do is turn those anecdotes into decision supporting evidence for your brewery at scale. And now we're going to talk briefly about how it works before diving into the platform itself. So first up, it starts with web crawling and data collection. We have developed web crawlers to go out and gather pieces of information on breweries, namely in the form of Google reviews and Yelp reviews, among other disparate sources. And after we collect that information, each individual piece of text, each individual piece of feedback is analyzed through a text parsing model. And that's just a fancy way of saying when Joel leaves a review saying that he went to Caboose Brewing Company, he had the IPA, he had a cheeseburger, 5-star experience, he also brought his dog. It pulls out every individual element that a consumer leaves in their overall experience. And then using that multiplied by over 27,000 at this point gives us access to key trends, taproom specific guidance, and that's where the data processing and feeding comes in. First, the information's gotten from the web, goes through those language models, gets organized and cleaned, and ultimately fed into one intuitive dashboard. So now that we have covered the how and the why, we're going to check it out. And for those of you that might have joined a second late, Q&A is interactive. Please drop things in the chat. Please come off mute, whatever is best for you. All right, so ConsumerPulse, the demo platform. Again, this is something that you all will have access to after the call. You'll have a link directly to this platform where you're going to be able to play with it yourself. Before diving into each of the pieces here, this is hosted on Google's data visualization platform, Looker Studio. You do not need to have a Gmail account to access this particular platform. Your link will work regardless of who your email host is. We're walking through this platform is understanding the key capabilities, custom benchmarking, trends, sales integrations, which we'll get to, understanding how to navigate, communicate use cases, etc. And then we'll dive through those sections. I did see a question from Amy. Is this only for taproom data or are craft beer focused bars also included? Craft beer focused bars are also included. So the majority of the data that you're seeing are breweries, but if you have the opportunity, well, when you have the opportunity to select the custom competitors that you would like to compare yourself to, we actually encourage that it be beyond just breweries because that consumer is thinking about multiple places that they can go. Contents, this page right here is just linked to every individual page that we'll walk through in a moment. But once you're using this on your own, if there was one that you wanted to click into, you can click directly from there. And lastly here for descriptions before diving into insights, I mentioned earlier that there are 10 factors more or less that we search and have searched across the last 3 years, understanding what motivates a taproom visit or a hospitality visit in general, to Amy's point. And these are the 10 factors that you're going to see laid out. Beverage variety, food, service, staff, environment, entertainment, specific beverages, family friendliness, pet friendliness, and price. The one thing that I'll call out here is that delineation between service and staff. That's one that gets a question occasionally. And service, think about efficiency, think about service model. Staff, think about those interactions that guests are having with your specific customers. The final description piece here, we've also developed consumer personas that are available as filters. So you have a social gatherer or social drinker, foodie, beer geek, family, local, and traveler, each with descriptions so you understand exactly who you're looking at when you're filtering for that particular individual. We're going to skip over key insights for now because it actually makes the most sense to come back to once we're all finished looking at everything. And where we're going to start is benchmark comparison, top line insights. This platform, you're going to see colored bars and gray bars. Anytime there's a colored bar, that bar would represent your brewery. The gray bar would represent the selection of competitors that you would be comparing yourself to. I'm going to zoom in a little bit as we talk about each of these individual charts, but to orient you to the page, all of these filters on the left-hand side: venue, state, time, date, month, year, gender, sentiment, overall rating. These are all simple, clickable, dynamic filters. The review contains, you can type in a word or a collection of words to filter out just for people saying those particular elements of a visit. And then anywhere on the platform across all pages, if there is data on your brewery, you will have a My Brewery or your logo eventually listed right there for you to understand that I am looking at information from my brewery. Anything in color is mine. Anything in gray is my comparison, my competitive benchmark. So zooming in a little bit here for the top 10 experience factors by benchmark, we're starting off with one of the most valuable visualizations in the entire platform, because across these 10 factors, and as you scroll, you can put your cursor over each of these and you can see exactly what that mentions. You can also use the toggle feature here to look at that in case you don't want to scroll. But what we're looking at right here, 81% in blue, My Brewery beverage variety. What does that mean? 81% of visitors mention beverage variety as a key element in their visit, as opposed to only 73% of the competitive benchmark. We go to food, 8% of our brewery's customers mention food, as opposed to 30% for our competitive benchmark. That being a key area, maybe we don't offer enough food, maybe we don't offer the right food. Something about our competitors is drawing customers who value food a little bit more than ours. And then the same thing can be seen here when we look at this green bar of specific beverages, 29% for us, 22% for our competitors. We're edging them out on specific beverages. And lastly here for this example, this 8% here for us is pet friendliness, 30% for our competitors. Understanding in one key visualization, what are the things that are drawing my people to my brewery compared to the same, more or less the same customer base to competing venues. Down here, these charts are relatively self-explanatory. You see gender by benchmark. So our brewery, in this case, the example, we're serving more men than women by a large margin, but even more so than the benchmark, our competing venues are serving more women than we are. You have overall sentiment, positive, neutral, and negative. And then return indication. This is whether someone mentions, I can't wait to come back, I've been coming here for years, different things like that to really indicate how are you capitalizing on those return customers. We're going to shift to the next slide, but I do want to take a moment to pause and see if there are any questions that I know there's nothing else in the chat, but if anyone wants to come off mute, any initial questions on this first visualization before we continue moving on? All right, on to the next. What we're looking at here are quarter over quarter comparisons, and these are built in for you to see how is my brewery doing from what last quarter to this quarter across some key metrics. So again, we're looking at gender. We had 43% female last quarter, only 33% female this quarter. We're seeing a slight drop. We're seeing a slight drop in sentiment overall, positive and negative. And then where the key is here, we also see 23% of folks indicating they were going to return last quarter, 13% for our benchmark. But then this quarter, only 13% for our brewery, 12% for the benchmark. The benchmark not changing too much, but a significant drop overall in return indications for our brewery. So once you get an insight like that, the natural next question might be, what does that mean for my business? How do we actually quantify what's actually going on and contributing to that factor? This next visualization provides exactly that. So understanding what were those top 10 experience factors last quarter and what were those experienced so far this quarter. And keep in mind, this is very fresh real-time data. So even for our example, in places where you might see 0%, we're still in November. There's a lot of Q4 left to go. But still, understanding what's changed from last quarter to this quarter and looking at that right now. So we see a decrease in beverage variety. We also see a decrease in people mentioning food. Maybe our food's not getting eaten as much. We are seeing service increase. We're seeing staff at similar levels. But using this chart to see where up here do I have some strong color and where is that falling apart? And the key for a lot of this is going to be those differences. On the top here, 21% last quarter of folks mentioning entertainment. And then down here, we have 0% so far. So that's could be, maybe you haven't had the same events. Maybe it's not getting the same traction. And maybe that's why you're not getting as many return customers. Up next, we're going to go into the My Brewery section. And here you're going to see some of the similar factors that we talked about earlier, some of the similar metrics overall, but now we're going to get some practice using the filtering and understanding, okay, what are we going to actually look at? And we're going to start by filtering just for women and seeing what gets mentioned by women. We're going to pay attention to the proportion of these bars. When you're playing around with this, it's working off of a very, very large data set. So when you do something and you do filter a particular item, it may take a couple of seconds like it is now. If you find that it is taking longer than you would anticipate, you can simply refresh the platform. Give it just a moment, and then we're going to filter by female, and now we are back to fully operating speed here. So I'm going to ask you to pay attention to the proportion of these bars. We have fewer female respondents than we do male respondents, but we look at what's mentioned by women right now, and we see staff, entertainment. We're looking beyond beverage variety right now. What are those additional factors? Okay, so we add staff and entertainment and specific beverages mentioned there at 6, 5, and 2. Then when we look at men, what's getting mentioned a little bit more for men? Specific beverages, certainly much more. And then when we had staff and entertainment, these are much lower bars proportionally than women, indicating that women are caring much more about the entertainment, staff interactions, things like that. Also being able to track sentiment over time, return indication over time. I'm going to filter back to the entire sample. For something like sentiment over time, the takeaway might be relatively simple. When are we having spikes of negative experiences? Return indication, I find customers have found a lot of value in this one, understanding the seasonality of when their experience is really resonating. Maybe it's the summer, maybe it's the winter, maybe it's sometime else. But this particular visualization, giving you a strong idea of when you're having a real salient experience with those customers. Up next, we have product and experience. And again, as a reminder and a refresher, anything in this My Brewery section is going to have My Brewery data, also indicated there by the My Brewery mark on the left-hand side. Drink style mentions, food mentions, and entertainment mentions. This one's relatively straightforward. We're not going to spend a ton of time on this, but understanding what is it about the experience overall that's getting mentioned more so than other things. Then we're going to get to queries. Queries is a really powerful section that we're going to see an example with in the national benchmark. But real quick, while we have it up on the screen, this is going to be the master data set of feedback on your particular tap room. And you're going to be able to search combinations of words, pull just information of the specific experiences that they had, and be able to look at, maybe I just want to see when they have IPA and pizza for a simple example. I did see a question pop up. Can you break out positive and negative from overall mentions? Yes, you can. We'll go back on the top line insights just to look at that real quick. And for sentiment here, that can be done simply by just clicking only positive or only negative, etc. All right, so next we're going to get to the sales pages. And we're really proud to offer these integrations with 4 of the largest POS companies serving craft beer right now. And there's a lot of flexibility here. If you don't see your POS company listed right here, right now, that's fine too. You can send us a spreadsheet and we will build an automation for any sales data that you have that you would like to be in here. And I say that this is flexible because these graphs here of category sales and the next one is beer sales, this is truly just that, an example, where if you wanted to track something specific, a specific product, during a specific time frame, you let us know and we create those visualizations. And GoTab and Square are actually the strongest in terms of the open API access. Toast is as well. Toast is very strong, but we can ultimately get a funnel of your sales metrics into this individual platform where it becomes then one centralized source of truth of both what customers are saying about your company, your competitors, as well as what do the actual numbers say. So that's just listed here, for example, category sales, food, beer, merchandise. Beer sales, you're going to see a similar chart just to get your creative juices flowing, understanding what are the possibilities here. So Kolsch, lager, sour, etc., whatever it might be. That's just there. And again, fully automated to your specific point of sale. The only one that I cannot get a specific connection to is Arrived, but you send a spreadsheet, we develop that automation. There's no extra work on your part other than sharing the data in the first place. Next up, we have trends. This is a 4-page section I'm really excited to show you. Trends are so visitors, gender over time, sentiment over time, as well as return likelihood over time. I see one question on that last page I'm going to respond to before getting into this. Is the sales data from point of sale paired with customer sentiment, or is it just an analysis of sales data? Wonderful question, Amy. So we can do that pairing and put those together in one visualization. It would be no extra work on your part. If you wanted sales separate, that's fine. But the customer sentiment would be coming from a different source. It would be coming from online sources and Google and Yelp and other sources that we have access to scrape. But we can overlay that data with the sales data. And I think there's really powerful visualizations in there too, where you're looking at overall sentiment of your particular venue. Have sales gone up? Have sales gone down? Being able to point to a specific moment in time and say sales increased, and we also saw an increase in mentions of X particular factor. You're going to be able to draw those conclusions with much more confidence than you may have ever had before. For visitors and experience, we have gender, sentiment, and return likelihood over time. You'll notice the My Brewery went away. So what you're looking at here is national data. Again, this is filterable by anything that you see here. You will notice here there's a placeholder for a venue filter when you're playing with this later on your own. This is just blocked to protect the integrity of additional breweries' online data. Granted, it is all public information, but just to keep that there, this is where venue filter would be if you wanted to pull out specific venues. But you can still filter by state, month, etc., anything that you do see right here. Entertainment, drinks, and food. This is where you're going to see common entertainment types, drink styles, as well as food mentions over time. There's a list of optional metrics for other event types. And if you wanted to say, maybe I don't want to look at live music, but I want to look at the trends of trivia, again, nationally, when's it mentioned? How often is it mentioned? Seems to be spiking around the springtime, maybe a dip in the summer, and you come back here and another strong spring and then a stronger summer. But again, you're able to look and filter and cut any of these particular visualizations. Drink style mentions, you're looking at styles of beer as well as styles of different drinks in general. There's wine, cider, cocktails, non-alcoholics. Food mentions, this is listing the top 10 to 15 most mentioned food items across the entire national sample. And where there's real power in this trend section, I'm actually going to skip back to visitors and experience here. I'm going to filter and choose. Maybe we only want to look at families for visitors and experiences and see, what does that mean for our customer segment and our customer base. When we filter for just families, we're seeing a much more level distribution of gender visiting the tap room. So we're seeing more women come when families are coming. You're seeing sentiment much more mixed, and you're seeing return indications. There's a spike there in December for, say, winter break, then maybe another spike in the summer of 2024. You can truly split this data in so many different ways to understand so many different use cases, not only about what people want, but also when they want it, who's visiting, and moments that matter for them. Next up in the trend section, we're going to look at top 10 experience factors by proportion of mentions. That's a bit of a mouthful, but in other words, we're going to look at those 10 factors that we looked at earlier and see what is mentioned over time. And I will say here, you see this drop off for November falling down very low. That's because it is November 11th and we do not have all of November's data in. This is running real time in the background. So this, as time goes on, that number is slowly going to trickle up. And October actually started really, really low, and then it actually ended up eclipsing September. But one of the key value propositions of this particular visualization, we hear all the time about you need food. Is that the case? Let's look at the last 2 years. The answer would be yes, you do need food. And we see how the difference there between beverage variety, beverages overall, and food, those are on a path to converge. So understanding, and this is something that I haven't even really tested before time. If let's look exclusively at women and see they already have converged. If we look at men, which we know statistically from our work, it's a more beer-centric audience, they have not yet converged with the exception of November where there's a smaller sample size. So using that to also understand, maybe we don't want to look at beverage variety, maybe we want to look at entertainment and the value of entertainment. When should I have a live band? Something like that. And you see some spikes. So summertime, June 23, July 23, then it dips for winter 23, and it spikes again in the summer. And then again, November, where you're kind of on that, not enough data yet to draw a conclusion. User-specified trends. This is where the power of the trends come back to you. You can type in, I'm going to zoom in just a fair bit so you can see. All you have to do is type in, maybe you want to understand, are there any breweries doing brunch really well or something along those lines? And you can see how many mentions of brunch are there. It spiked with a relatively low volume of mentions, 9 in February 24, but then it spiked again. Maybe that's something that we want to try. Maybe that's something that's catching light. Maybe that's something that we can differentiate ourselves with. Taking a moment to pause and have a sip of water before diving into the custom benchmark section. Custom benchmark. So we're looking at top line insights. Again, this should look relatively familiar to you. This is where you would see your collection of competitors. So you custom select those. And for anyone who joined the call late or didn't see this in the chat, it is not limited to craft breweries. It can be restaurants. It could be, I even had clients before where their space is so event centric. Said, Michael, I want to compare ourselves to this hotel where they're having weddings, or this event center where there are concerts and comedy shows. Depending on your venue, depending on who you want to attract, as long as they have a Google profile where people can talk about them, we can include them and we can get their data side by side. One thing that was not mentioned in the benchmark comparison section, you can filter out for a side-by-side one-to-one comparison as well. So you don't always have to look at that group setting of there's Michael, I give you 15 places. How do I compare to this one? You can filter out specifically for that one in the benchmark comparison section. But for the custom benchmark section here, we're looking exclusively at what is being mentioned. Again, understanding when are there spikes in negativity in our competitors? What are those linked to? Then specifically in the product section, this will be something you have seen before. Drink style mentions, food mentions, entertainment mentions, understanding what are my competitors good at? What are people drawing, and using a comment from the chat earlier, what are people only mentioning positively here? And then we got some increases for beer, increases for food. Let's look at what about the negative experiences and what's getting mentioned negatively. And apparently some people don't like the burger, and the chicken made the list too. But anyways, power there to understand where my competitors winning. Queries exists. We're going to go through the example in the national benchmark section here in just a moment. The national benchmark is just that. You're looking at the national view, same visualizations. The graphs for the top 10 experience factors, I realize this may not have been obvious. They're always going to be ordered in the volume of national mentions. So beverage variety, food, service, et cetera, those are the top three. That's the reason for the order on the other graphs as well. So if you're scoring something really low in these first three bars, that's an area where, at least nationally, that's a place where you would expect to receive more of a reputation build. Product and experiences, same visualization you saw. And then now for the demo of the queries section. So the one element that enables you to search an or search with a string of words is what's called regular expressions here. Because if we just change this to contains, for example, and we kept it easy, and I want to see an item that contains pizza and IPA. I'll even get rid of the and. We'll do pizza, IPA. We're probably going to get 0 responses here. No data, because it's searching for exactly that phrase, pizza, IPA, and that's not necessarily the way that people write sentences. So this is default setting for regular expressions, and there are plenty of examples of the syntax up here for how you would actually use this. If you have a one-word search, if you just want to search for IPA, you can simply copy and paste, hit enter, and it will then return all of the reviews mentioning the phrase IPA. And I'll zoom in again here for our or search. And or, it doesn't have to be limited to 2 words either. So we'll stick to some large examples for now, but pizza or IPA, and we get those responses. And then maybe you want pizza and IPA, and you would copy and paste. We have that example set right here. You would copy and paste that in. And just one more note on the reason that it has to be so syntax specific. The thing that you see here, IPA pizza, pizza IPA, that just simply allows the words or the strings of text to be in any order. So somebody mentioning IPA first and then pizza, as well as somebody mentioning the word pizza first and then IPA, this particular syntax is going to return all of those particular examples. All right. So that covers all of the sections. We're going to go back to the key insights section here for a moment. And the reason I skipped over this at first is because this section is completely customizable to what is important to you. So maybe the top 10 experience factors by benchmark is important. You want to see how you're doing to competitors. You want to see the overall gender breakdown of who we're serving versus our competitors, as well as sentiment over time. And then maybe you want the inclusion of category sales on this particular visualization. So this chart specifically, anything that you want on key insights can be put on that particular page, that's something you would then communicate with our team. I'm going to pause here before heading back to the slides to wrap it up. Are there any additional questions about the platform while we are in the platform? All right, back to the slides we go. So we're going to talk briefly about the benefits overview, what this all brings into one place. So we're getting taproom specific data compared to your custom selection of local competitors. You're able to pick and choose not just breweries, restaurants, bars, etc., bowling alleys, you name it. We will be able to track it. Second, real-time data on taproom visit motivators plus local and national trends. The real-time element, I don't think that I can truly understate that enough with how rapidly things are changing in this industry, with how quickly new drinks are coming on. We hear all the time about, Gen Z is interested in this and they're not drinking beer. And, a lot of the work that you're going to see here, updating real time, you're going to see exactly what people are talking about in the last week. You can look at the different drinks that they're having, and maybe it's not different, maybe it's the same, but you're going to have access to all that particular information in real time. Then we just walked through that query-enabled data set to read specific examples of those consumer experiences. Ultimately, turning anecdotes, turning the I heard this, I heard that. We're taking the I heard this, I heard that, taking what's available on the internet, quantifying it, and organizing it into an easy, simple way for you to be able to make actionable business decisions, turning those anecdotes into those strategic business decisions. And lastly, it's all not without the key sales metrics. So having those matched, having those understanding, okay, our sales went up and our sentiment went down. Or you might have something where sales go up and sentiment went up, or sales go down and sentiment went up. But it's something for you to say, okay, something's happening, and we're going to use this tool to understand what's actually going on from that consumer perspective and make sense of these particular sales trends. So last but not least, would not be a full demo without going over pricing itself. The platform standard is $1,000 a year, payable monthly or annually. The sales integration is offered at an additional $250 a year, payable monthly or annually. And there are incentives available. The majority of you on this call, this is the first time I've had the pleasure of speaking with you. I hope to be working with you in the future. There are incentives available for a first-year client, pay in full. Also, for many of you on the line who operate more than one particular tap room, that is also something that goes into consideration as well. So what's next? The platform that you saw today is going to be yours for a period of 2 weeks. You're going to be able to play with it. You're going to be able to use it yourself and interact with it. However, you all also received an email from me this morning talking about start thinking about those competitor sets that you might want to compare yourself to. If there is someone, or not someone, but a collection of folks that you would want to compare yourself to, and you would want to see how your data looks in this platform, you can use and scan your phone to fill out that QR code or click that link that is also here in that particular slide. It'll take you to a form on our website where you can then complete that link, and I will set time with you individually to walk through that custom-made platform after we get the list of those competitors, and then you will be able to use that link for a free trial period as well. So until you get your own version, you'll have this link that you can click on from the slides. You will have this for a period of 2 weeks for you to truly integrate yourself into the platform, try and understand how we could use this insight in our business this way, creating those use cases beyond just what I mentioned on the call. And lastly here, for any questions, comments, and feedback, you can reach out to me individually here by email or leave a note on the website. I thank you all very much for your time. Yes, Amy, I can absolutely put the link in the chat here for you. I will. there is the link for you to go ahead and fill out, and then I will follow up with an email shortly after that. I'm going to stay on here. We finished a little bit ahead of schedule. If there are any individual questions, comments, anything that you'd like to go back into the platform and look through, I'm happy to do that. So please, by all means, you're free to go, but thank you for your time. But if you'd like to stay, we will be here and to stay and chat a little bit more.
I had a quick question on the national trend section. When you're looking at the sentiments, I couldn't tell just because we're going through it quickly. Are you able to see how many people responded that way?
Yes.
Because it looked like it was percentages, but I was just curious, I don't know if it's nationally, if there was thousands of people or what the metric is.
Yes, there is, and I'll make sure that this is when we send the link out. But if we go back to something like this, you will be able to, yes, this is metric of percentages, but when you click into, and I'll make sure that it is, it's there, but you can see, I'll put it under the year category where you can see the number of folks who have mentioned that across each year.
I guess the only sorry, I guess I'm the question asker today. Is this every venue that exists in the United States for the national trends, or is there some kind of population set, or I guess just for the national section, how many locations are you guys looking at?
Yeah. So right now we have over 500 specific venues in the national benchmark, and it started with a truly random sample of craft breweries across the United States. And then as we've built this product and prepared for this product, we want to look at this group of competitors and this group of competitors. So it's inclusive of a base nationally statistically significant sample, plus the addition of existing partner breweries and their competitors.
Great, thank you.
Of course. Thank you, Amy. And Matt, any questions from you, my friend? Give it about 20 seconds and then we will end the call.
No, I didn't have any questions. Thanks for the presentation. It looks like a good service. Can't wait to poke around on a trial basis for sure.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming, Matt. Appreciate you.
You bet.
All right.
Nicely done. Other than I'm Amy Renner today. My
That's right.
Chrome, I was literally a minute late because